Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode 5 of 22 Man Game, a subsidiary of the Ethical Ball Podcast Network. It is 5:35 p.m. Friday, August 22nd, one day before a very special day for someone on the pod. Damon, care to enlighten?
Tomorrow is Kobe Bryant's birthday, so that's huge, right? For the football podcast fans everywhere.
Yeah, that is huge. Um, cool. I'll take that at face value and assume you don't want me to press further on any other things that would be
No,
happening.
I was just being silly. It's my birthday as well tomorrow.
Okay.
Yay. Woo. The
I got
big
really scared that you were like, "Don't tell anyone my
don't I
birthday. I
don't want
don't
them
want
to
to
know.
know." Yeah.
No, I
Oh,
was just trying to
that's
think of a
cool.
silly response. Yeah, I'll be 47, so really excited about that. That's how I feel. I feel so old.
Despite the fact that you're only turning a crisp 19. So, uh,
No one will ever
well,
know my real age.
real age not to be disclosed. We are somewhere
29. I'll
between
be
10 and
29.
90. 29. Okay. Well, my age is staying a secret. May or may not be my birthday next month, but the world will never know.
Fair.
What were some takeaways from the LA trip besides that fire hat? How did it go visiting Dom of Two Man Game fame?
Did we talk about that on this podcast too? I don't remember. Did that happen? That I was doing
Well,
that?
we haven't I don't know because I know those plans kind of came together last minute. So
Yeah,
for the listener, you went and visited Dom in LA over last weekend, which is part of why we did not have a pod last weekend. Tell us about it.
that did happen. Yeah, it was fun. It was a lot of fun. We had fun. I talked with Dom on our show a couple days ago about it, so I won't reminisce too much to it. So go listen to that episode of Two Man Game if you want to hear all about the LA trip because Dom was obviously there, so it makes sense that we talked about it. But the more fun thing, or arguably the least less fun thing, is that I came back and got here at 1:30 a.m. and then I went to sleep and went to the first day of school. And now it's Friday and I've done the first week of school. Yay. I'm
That is
tired.
so awesome. Yeah, you got to be pretty drained after that. I think the first week of school, if you aren't in the education business, it's hard to understate how overwhelming it is to have to connect with students you either have never met before or have to reconnect with. It's a lot of work. So, um, yeah, I imagine pretty draining, but excited to have you here. Excited to get into today's episode, which is a follow up to our AFC episode going over our record predictions for all 16 teams in the AFC. We're going to do the same for the NFC. And before that, we're going to dive straight into some news. We'll
But
start
how
with
are
the
you though?
injuries.
We never talked about
Oh, how am
you.
I? Oh, my feelings don't matter. Don't bring those into this. I'm
Bro.
fine. As you know, I started playing a new game, Metaphor Refantasio. No, I don't fully understand the name, and it's been pretty fun. It's kind of what I was hoping it would be for the most part, which I had pretty high expectations, which is good. Other than that, been working on the job search. I think that may come to a resolution soon if things go as intended, or at least kind of put them on the back burner and let me enter a different phase as I regain some stability and routine, which I'm looking forward to. So that's what's big in my world, and yeah, that's how I feel. I feel good. I feel raring to go. Are you ready, Dave?
I'm ready. We're like 2 weeks away from football. Crazy.
We are 2 weeks away from football. Last preseason games taking place this week. Some of them already happened last night, and coming early next week is the cut down day for NFL rosters. So during training camp, it's a 90-man roster that gives people the opportunity to compete for jobs, earn a spot on the roster or on the practice squad, which is sort of that reserve roster of players who weren't necessarily starters or key backups, but who you can maybe elevate to help you in a few games or to keep around to help you kind of facilitate practice, oftentimes taking on the role of the opposing team and studying their tendencies, those kinds of things. So With that said, let's start off with some injuries. There are, of course, a lot of injuries whenever you have a roster that is 90 people deep. You're going to have people get hurt. Tried to filter for the injuries that are likely to have the most impact on the upcoming
And
season or on the teams involved.
32 teams of people. A lot of people.
Times 90. I mean, that's a lot mathematically. I think that's like 2,700
Yeah.
players, if I'm not
Yeah.
mistaken. So,
Yeah.
pretty significant roster sizes. So yeah, you're going to expect to see injuries. Some teams more snake bitten than others. Let's dive right in, and Damon, stop me if you want to linger on any of them. I'll stop if I think we should linger on them. We'll start with the Falcons, who had right tackle Caleb McGarry just extended this month, injure his left leg, and he will miss some time. Their backup offensive tackle Storm Norton is expected to miss 6 to 8 weeks with an injured ankle. So softening their offensive line there. Lamar Jackson, quarterback, not Lamar Jackson, cornerback. Quarterback for the Ravens did seem to injure his foot, but the MRI reveals no injuries. It appears Lamar will not miss any time, which is good. Bills corner Tre'Davious White, once a starter for them, now kind of their third or fourth corner, was carted off the practice field with a leg injury this week. And that is another hit to their safety depth. They're still waiting for their first round cornerback to return to practice. The Panthers had a couple injuries on their defensive line. These are both players I named when I was talking about who I want to see emerge from the Panthers D line. Princely Uman suffered a shoulder injury, and then edge Nick Scourton suffered a collapsed lung in joint practices with the Texans last week. So hopefully
Collapsed lung is crazy.
Yeah, I don't know what the prognosis for that is. I mean, they didn't move him to IR, so I assume they're expecting he'll be back at some point during the
His lung
season.
will
But
uncollapse.
yeah, they'll lay down a new concrete foundation in the bottom of the lung and then inflate. I don't even know what a collapsed lung means. Like, does it shrivel up like a cartoon? And
Yeah, I imagine it just makes in terms of what happens, I'm not sure, but I imagine it just makes, breathing and such obviously very difficult, which when you're playing a sport, that's going to be a problem.
yeah, and I would worry about kind of oxygen circulation in general as well. But
Hmm.
um, I'm sure it's something that, you're taking a lot of hits to the ribs and stuff. Not the first player for this to happen to, and I'm sure there's a way back. Um, Selfishly included on this list, Lions defensive end Ahmed Hassanin, 6th-round pick, injured his pec, won't require surgery. Hopefully, we'll be back at some point during the season. Will likely hit IR. Believe the first NFL player ever drafted from Egypt. So, kind of a fun fact about
Oh, okay.
Hassanin there. Yeah. Um, Texans right tackle Blake Fisher, who I believe was their second-round pick last year, may miss time with an injury. And Chiefs defensive end Felix Anadike Uzoma, a first round pick for them, I believe, last year as well, or maybe 2 years ago, actually, is being sent to IR. Saints offensive lineman and former first round pick Trevor Penning has turf toe, which may keep him out for week one. And I'll come back to that one in a second. The Dolphins have multiple injuries in their offensive backfield. Reserve running back Alexander Madison, formerly of the Vikings, out for the season for them. Devon Achane has a calf injury that may or may not impact his playing time. I think their hope is to bring him back sooner. And then Jalen Wright got hurt in joint practices with the Jaguars. That injury is relatively new. Couldn't get a prognosis on whether that's lasting or whether that was a one-time thing.
And they just drafted a guy too, right?
Ollie Gordon, I think.
Yes, that's right.
Yes. So he's kind of top of the depth chart right now because all of
Yeah.
their first three running backs are banged up. So,
Also, Alex Madison of the Raiders too. Don't forget his
oh my gosh, the
tenure on
legendary
the
stint
Las Vegas Raiders.
running
Um,
alongside Amir Abdullah. I'm sure
yeah,
a legendary attack.
Zamir White. Come on.
Oh, Zamir White Truther, stand up or sit down, either way. Uh, the Niners lose cornerback Trey Harris to a season-ending injury. Based on some of the things I was reading, it seems like he was maybe a key reserve for them, potentially in line to start. So, in addition, they're just generally kind of banged up at wide receiver and running back, which we'll get into
Hmm.
more later. Jacob Cowing has been banged up. Russell Gage will miss a week or two, likely back for week one, and then Jawan Jennings has a believe a calf is what they're saying he has. Some people have speculated that because he wants to be traded, maybe this is a, quote unquote calf injury and he's not actually hurt.
They
But
call
either
that
way,
contractitis.
okay, yeah, yeah, he's got a case of the underpaid, and a couple running backs for them. Patrick Taylor sent to IR, and then Corey Kiner was waived and reverted to IR. So they are both out, presumably for the season as well. I did see that some players, like I think two players who go to IR before the season can be returned after, but it's a very
Mm.
limited number. So I'm not necessarily expecting to see neither of them back.
Yeah, that's a good explanation. People put on IR before the season. Typically, they're out for the season. So
Yeah. Um,
good knowledge for the listener to have. You can't
something
be a
you might
49ers running back without being injured,
Yeah,
basically.
it's kind of the rite of passage. You sign a blood pact where you can get between $1 and $3 million a year, but you have to sacrifice a leg, and that's just kind of unfortunately, yeah. If McCaffrey stays healthy, I think the team will be satisfied. But um,
Yeah.
unfortunate for them. I did want to mention also, you may see, if you're looking up maybe your favorite team, and then you'll see an article that says, "Hey, XYZ player reverted to IR." My understanding of what that means, players who are kind of waived with that injury designation that aren't signed by another team will then just go onto that team's IR list. So,
Mm.
um, not necessarily them trying to get, like, I assume what that looks like is they don't want to use an IR designation on that player. So they're going to release them, and then they just sort of automatically default to IR. And I would assume that doesn't take an IR designation slot, but more research to be done. If you see reverted to IR, it just means they cut that player, and then that player automatically came back.
Hmm.
A couple more injuries here. 2024 New England second round wide receiver Jalen Polk is out for the season with a shoulder injury. There were some rumors he might be cut. He's not high on the depth chart for them, but either way, a definite loss for a young player in an important developmental year. It's difficult
Pop
there.
Douglas. Gotta mention Pop Douglas. He's coming up.
He's about to pop off. I mean, the depth chart is the runway is clear. Runway is clear for him. And then before I get to this last injury, I wanted to pop up here. Last night, Giants cornerback TJ Moore took a bad leg injury in the preseason, and I think he's a player near the bottom of the depth chart. I don't know if he was necessarily expected to be a regular contributor this year. But what caught my eye about this is that it was pretty severe. A lot of the players came off the bench. And then apparently Jameis Winston, Jackson Dart, and Russell Wilson helped him into the ambulance, which was kind of unexpected for the three quarterbacks to do that. I kind of wasn't familiar with a story like that. So that sort of caught my eye. I don't know if you have any takes on that, but I thought it
Yeah,
was
I feel
interesting.
like I've actually seen a lot of content being promoted to me about the Giants QB room, which is interesting. Especially
That's
a
a
lot of
good
Jameis.
a lot of Jameis
I
talk about
like
Jameis being traded potentially. Have you seen some of that or
no, it's
other
just like the
things?
NFL. Like, look, celebrating, or look at Jameis's pregame warm up. It's like, oh, sure, I
Yeah, I
guess.
guess kind of famous guy in a big market. Yeah, I don't really.
I saw Jackson Dart doing the crab finger thing on the sideline to Jameis. That was kind of funny, I guess.
um that's, yeah, a powerful part of his legacy is that, like, eating the W thing, which I think is kind of
Hmm.
gross. Um anyway, yeah, I just thought that was interesting. I wonder if the league thinks Winston could be traded and is trying to, like, give him buzz so that if a team trades for him, then it'll be interesting. um, or something. I don't know. Either way, just an interesting little tidbit there. And then I'd say maybe the most significant injury on this list in terms of impact on the 2025 season. Bucks wide receiver Jalen McMillan is expected to hit IR after roster cutdowns, which means he could return after at least those first four games, but definitely pretty established as a number three receiver, maybe pushed down to four with Emeka Egbuka joining the team this offseason. But I've heard some good points on podcasts talking about just the injury histories of Mike Evans, Chris Godwin. They need their wide receiver depth, so seeing them lose an established player like that could affect their offensive performance start of the season here.
Fantasy sleeper Egbuka. He's going to be there.
Yeah, I actually before we move on to talking about some of the suspension and criminal stuff, I wanted to ask what your position in our fantasy draft is. We have our fantasy draft coming next Friday, and I don't know where
One
you're
week.
drafting.
I believe I'm number 7.
Number 7? Okay.
I think. Yes, I did the order, but I think I'm number 7.
You did the yeah, you sent us the wheel. I love where I'm at. I feel very fortunate. I'm fifth, which means that I'll be fifth player in the round every round. It's exactly how I like it. You know who I'm targeting at number 5.
If Gibbs is there,
If Gibbs
he's
is
going to
there,
Jared.
and I already thought of my team name last year. I was gotta Gib it up.
Yeah.
And because Gibbs changed his number to 0, I'm thinking of doing like Gibbing 0 Fs or something like that.
Mm.
Um,
I like the weekly name changes. They're fun. I
oh,
like
we did get into that, right? I think we did start changing by the week.
I do it. I did it in my other league though. I drafted Gibbs. I don't know if it was last year or the year before. I think it was last year. And my first like week team name was the Jamirical Workers, which I enjoyed.
That's a good one. I actually think I remember you showing me that. I'm remembering now that my team name ended up staying as Jaden's Maliki Points Faucet for most of the
Yes.
year.
Yeah.
Um, as tribute to Jaden Daniels, who I give myself the right to like because he was my fantasy quarterback before he crushed my dreams. And Malik
Yeah.
Neighbors was
Yeah.
a dog.
Awesome rookie duo for you last year.
I was thinking about who I had on my team because I traded for Brock Bowers. I had
Hmm.
Jaden Daniels. I had Malik Neighbors. I think I must have just lost because my second running back spot was weak or something. Because and
It
I got
was
some
a
crazy matchups too. But anyway,
star-studded lineup for sure.
uh,
In
um,
my other league, I'm drafting first, so that's
ooh, I
fun.
would. Can you
I
trade
don't
out of
want to
that?
be first.
I
No,
can.
we part of my like I sent you guys a poll or a form or whatever to fill out like questions. Part of that league, one of the questions was draft day trades or like draft pick trades or anything, and everyone was like, no. There's always one person that wants to do it, so that's why I put it on there. And I didn't put it in ours because that's too much. That's
Yeah, I
too
think. I
complicated
think
for us.
I respect all the players in our league. I think that they're not going to be. I think we're probably the some of the most fantasy and football in general junkies in that group. So, um, are you one of the people who votes every year for doing the 2 wins thing
I
in
don't
our
give
league?
myself a vote because I'm the commissioner. So it's just
Thank you
nine
for that.
votes. That way
Okay.
it's no ties or anything like that.
I have to remember we got to talk about the entire NFC today. As my headphones slowly die on my head, which is epic. Let's move on to my headphones make a woo woo
Oh
whenever they're
no.
like close, and I've already heard it
Yeah.
3 times. So you'll be getting my raw, unfiltered audio soon enough.
Yeah, for sure.
Suspensions, yeah. Let's cover those real fast. Only one suspension handed down in this period. 49ers wide receiver Demarcus Robinson getting a 3-game suspension for substance abuse, and that's on top of the injuries we've already mentioned: Jacob
Yep.
Cowing, Russell Gage, Juwan Jennings, Brandon Ayuk, not expected back until I think week
No.
6 or week 8. So that's 5 wide receivers on their roster currently unavailable to them.
Hopefully Ricky Pearsall doesn't get shot again.
That would that would be a significant dampener. Another fantasy sleeper, by the way. Heed the call
Hmm.
pod. They were like, we got to get Ricky Pearsall. So be on the lookout for that. But yeah, that's challenging for them. And then in other suspension news, apparently, per Adam Schefter, the league was initially pushing to give Rashee Rice an 8-game suspension, though noted that much like a salary negotiation, a lot of the negotiating tactics between the NFL and NFLPA for suspensions are kind of that: start with the high number, respond with the low number, work your way to the middle. So um, we could see something in that 3 to 6 game range for Rashee Rice, who otherwise would be the wide receiver 1 for the Chiefs if he's on the field. So pretty
Right.
significant suspension whenever that falls in their schedule could significantly affect, because they do have a lot of nice home games against their hard opponents, but they're still hard opponents. Not having that clear cut wide receiver 1 will make that difficult. Um, Lastly, Jimmie Ward, 34-year-old Texan safety, facing a domestic violence suit, being accused of sexual assault by the mother of his 3-year-old child. The story's pretty gruesome. I don't want to necessarily get too deep into it, but this is on the heels of multiple criminal charges coming this offseason. I don't know if the NFL has already responded with disciplinary action, but I have to assume that they will, pending the results of those cases. And at 34 years old, probably a player already near the end of his career anyway. So I would expect when that hammer comes down, that may signal the end of his career, depending on the severity of those suspensions.
NFL always has some model citizens, huh?
Yeah, real hero characters. I mean, for every there are players out there who do a lot of really good work, and then there are players out there who do some of these terrible things, and I don't think the league maybe holds them accountable in the way that they should all the time. So something to
Unethical.
unethical.
True.
So true, and so unethical and bad. Let's get into news that's less dour, past the injuries, past the suspensions, into the land of extensions and
Yes.
signings. Um, Dolphins cornerbacks have been a focus for us this offseason. Former Dolphins cornerback Xavier Howard just signed with the Colts in these last few weeks. Here we mentioned how one of their top corners had taken an injury, and they generally have had some holes in their secondary, both talent wise and injury wise. So a signing meant to shore up some of that weakness there. Any takes on the Colts cornerback room? Would you adjust your predictions accordingly, or are you?
Hmm. Let's see. Would this make the Colts? I had them at 6-11. I think you had them lower than I did.
I think I might have
Maybe.
had them 3-14 or something
Yeah, you had them
ridiculous.
like really bad. So I'm happy with 6-11. And
Okay.
I think part of my talk was about Anthony Richardson, and we're gonna get to why that doesn't matter in a second.
I'm excited to talk about that little piece of news. Let's talk about these re-signing super quick. James Cook doing a bit of a holdout for the Buffalo Bills, signed a 4-year, $46 million extension. I would put him in the like very good tier of running backs. I don't
Hmm.
think he's a Saquon Barkley, but he's
Right.
um, capable pass catcher, brother of Dalvin Cook, and coming off his rookie deal. This is solid money for a running back. This is near the higher end that those contracts go. We'll also see in a minute how running backs may not be valued terribly highly, as we've discussed before.
Yeah, he seems like probably the best running back I can remember in the Josh Allen era of the Bills. I feel like Devin Singletary had like a good little stint there. I feel like LaShawn McCoy, that was before this kind of
Mm-hmm.
current Bills era. So yeah, you want a guy like this, I think.
Yeah, I think he can definitely give you something. I am curious to see whether he can kind of push himself up into being a consistent kind of producer because uh again, all this fantasy talk this week, not that many touchdowns in his first couple of years, then popped off for like 18 or some ridiculous number last season. So
Hmm.
we'll see if he's consistent. Bears backup quarterback Tyson Bagent signed a 2-year, $20 million extension on Wednesday. Nice money for him. Apparently, um, came from a background where maybe his parents didn't have too much, and so it's cool to see a player get life altering money, which I don't think
Having to
he
buy your
necessarily had
mom a
that kind of concept.
house.
I always love that. I always love those little stories where they buy things for their family, players buy things for their
Hmm.
family. I think that's very sweet. Um, and then this extension got buried in the news cycle this morning, and
I did see
um,
this, yeah.
I was like looking up news at like 2 p.m. and it had already kind of washed out of the cycle. But Panthers right tackle Taylor Moton signed a 2-year, $44 million extension. That's pretty good money for an offensive tackle. It might be getting to the point where 20 million's that pretty good number. And then, closer to 25, 26 is that best of the league number. But really nice extension for a bit of an older player, but tackles can last forever.
Yes, sir.
All right, let's jump into trades. If you're coming from maybe an NBA sphere, where I feel like trades, the trade deadline in the NBA is typically a pretty big deal, or at least, in the past has gotten a lot of pop. The NFL isn't as much of a trading league traditionally, though it seems like in recent years we've been seeing more trades. And around this time of year, when teams are often releasing 35 players, maybe that team's seventh wide receiver would be the fourth wide receiver on your team, right? So you're
Hmm.
trying to make deals to acquire players who would otherwise potentially be cut and get ahead of the line of other teams who would have the opportunity to sign that player. So it's a good opportunity to secure talent that you appreciate from other teams that otherwise might be cut, and then you don't really control where they go. Let's go in chronological order here. We've had 7 trades since Monday. So,
Yeah,
a lot of movement. Why don't you take the first one on the list for us?
I'll do it. The Houston Texans traded wide receiver John Mechie III and a 2026 sixth round pick for Eagles tight end Harrison Bryant and a 2026 fifth round pick. What's my take, you ask? I don't understand why the Texans made this trade. They have Dalton Schultz and probably some other tight ends that I'm forgetting that have been there forever. And I feel like John Mechie was okay. Like, obviously not some premier receiver, but a good depth receiver. Loss of Stephon Diggs and others. I feel like he would have gotten some third or fourth wide receiver reps. When I don't know how much Harrison Bryant is going to play, they did move up one round draft pick wise, so I guess that's good.
Um, yeah, did okay, yeah. So they got the fifth round from the Eagles, right? I'm
Hmm.
trying to see who is their second second tight end. They do have just a lot of
Still,
wide
they
receivers
still
they
got like
brought in.
Noah Brown sitting over there somewhere.
No, Noah Brown. Wow. Oh, they have Irv Smith Jr. actually.
Oh,
And I've
former
heard of Cade
Vikings
Stover.
legend.
Yeah, I
Hmm.
kind of feel
Hmm.
like they were deep enough, but maybe they want a fourth. Maybe they're going to convert one of those guys to fullback. At wide receiver, they did sign Christian Kirk. I
Oh
think
yeah, I
Xavier
forgot about
Hutchinson
that.
got injured.
They
Yeah,
gave
so they've
him a
got
lot of money.
Nico. And they drafted a wide receiver in the second round. I mean, they just keep loading up at that position. So, I mean, I'm looking at, they've got Jaden Higgins and Jalen Knoll that they drafted this offseason, I think in the second and third round. So, I guess they just love bringing them in and love shipping them out. I don't know. Um, I don't hate this for the Eagles. I think it's a good time to get a guy who could be maybe closer to his draft stock. It reminds me of the trade for Jahan Dotson, former first
Hmm.
round wide receiver of the Commanders last year. So,
This is a trade that I'm like, who called who? Why are you picking up the phone? Why did this trade happen?
yeah,
Who thought
I
of
wonder.
this?
My only guess would be like, did the Texans put Mechie on the block, and then the Eagles were like, "Ooh, John Mechie." I don't really know what the like. I'm
Yes.
gonna move on to this next trade and lump it into this conversation.
Sure.
Jaguars traded center Luke Fortner for Saints defensive tackle Kalen Saunders. I don't really know either of these players, and
Hmm.
it does make me wonder. I guess the Saints have had some offensive line injuries, so maybe they go calling around. But I would love to see. Um, there was a Hard Knocks like off-season program last year that was like general manager of the Giants being like, "We're not bringing Saquon Barkley back," and then looking like an idiot, so they'll never make that show again. But I would love to see the workings of a trade like this with two players who aren't at the top of the roster. What do those conversations look like? How do teams scout other teams' veterans? Where are these decisions made to make this trade in particular? I don't know. It's interesting.
Did they call every team? They're like, do you want to give us your backup center? You want to give
I
us?
That's a
We'll
good
give you this
question. I
guy.
mean, that's all I can picture happening, right? Like maybe they had a short list. Um, maybe Luke Fortner has played for them in the past or something, and I just don't know about it because I'm not up on Saints backup offensive lineman play. But
Not that many offensive linemen I can name. I'll tell you what.
I
Michael
I
Orr
don't
still
think it,
around?
I he might that might
No.
be a
The
decade
answer
in the
is no.
past. No, yeah. Um, okay. I'm just looking at him now. I guess he was his third round pick 3 years ago, which I was never going to know. Awesome. Okay.
Right.
Epic. Everyone came here for the Luke Fortner content. All
Yeah.
respect to Luke Fortner. I'm sure he's a quality player in person, but just not familiar with his
Wow.
game.
You got to be
Uh,
careful with the person one. This is the NFL we're talking about.
okay. Well, I'm not sure, but I'm hopeful. Let's do that. Jets made two trades in the same day. Take us through them. This was interesting.
Yeah, they traded their 2026 sixth round pick for Browns defensive tackle Jawan Briggs and a 2026 seventh round pick. So they add depth, I suppose, in that position. Then they traded two more sixth round picks um, from 2026 and 2027 for Vikings defensive tackle Harrison Phillips and a 2027 seventh round pick. So really stacking the D line over there in New York.
Yeah, I always love when it's like, okay, so they have a conditional 2027 7, and you're like, okay, all these little like transactions. Not a bad haul for Harrison Phillips, a
I was
veteran.
gonna say, I feel like Harrison Phillips is a name I know too well to be traded for sixth round picks, but alas.
I feel like at the end of their career, players will sometimes get flipped. I kind of remember the Lions giving, I think, a seventh for Michael Brockers after the Stafford trade. Actually, Harrison Phillips is only 29 years old. I thought he was older than that. Um, I think that's a great trade. I think defensive tackle is one of those positions that if you can get solid to above average play, especially when you already have Quinn and Williams doing a lot of good work for relatively little draft capital, you kind of don't regret that one. So interesting moves for the Jets. We'll see if
I
they get
had the
interior
Jets
players.
second in the division. What can I say? The
Yeah,
9-8
I
Jets.
if the Patriots had done this, you would be with me about their playoff potential.
They lost
Um,
Jalen Polk. I'm out. I'm out on this.
yeah, that's true. That's true. As long as Polka dots the roster, there's a chance, but he's out. So, um, another trade for the Saints here. This one was really interesting because I had never heard of this receiver, but they gave up a
Nope.
haul for him. Saints traded a 2026 fourth and 2027 seventh to the Broncos for wide receiver Devon Vele, which, in my opinion, if you're moving a fourth round pick for a player, you have firm belief in the talent of that player, and it's a player that is typically established in some way. And so
If
for
you move a
players kind of
fourth
under the
round pick
radar,
for a player, it should be a player I know.
I kind of agree. Shout out to the Cowboys trading their fourth rounder for backup Patriots quarterback Joe Milton this offseason. And fourth round pick trade legend Jonathan Mingo as well.
Jonathan Big Go. Let's go.
Had to get him in here. I guess he was I'm trying to get an idea for like his career stats. I mean, it looks like he was a seventh round pick last year, and you traded a fourth round pick to get him
So it's
this.
an interesting choice.
I mean, he got 475 yards last year in it looks like 13 games played. So potential, but fourth round pick potential. I
What
don't
does the
know.
Saints receiver room even look like? They got
Chris
Olave.
Olave.
They still have like Traquan Smith,
Ooh, I
Lil Jordan
wish I could
Humphrey
tell you.
still kicking around over there.
Um. Oh, okay. There's actually two names on this list that you should know.
Great. Brandon Cooks went back there. I know that actually.
There's one. Yep. And then the other one, I would say qualifies as a fantasy sleeper.
Qualifies as a fantasy sleeper. Really?
It's a
On the
name that
Saints?
like I've heard of that plays offense for the Saints. I'll say that.
Like, what? I'm confused.
Also,
Is it a tight
apparently,
is it a
three
tight end or
teams
is it a
called
receiver?
on Vele, by the way, per Sean Payton. So I guess there's demand. But um,
Interesting.
this player had only 350 yards last year, but 700 yards in 2023. We were looking for Rashid Shaheed.
Oh yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah. I should have known
yeah.
that.
Just on the edge of like knowable player.
Hmm.
Here's two big
I'm a
trades by the
casual.
Niners, though. Let's move on from the Devon Vele talk. Maybe he'll be something for the Saints and we'll be eating our words. That'd be kind of cool. But
Have you seen the casual content over on the other show?
oh, I have. Yeah.
It's great stuff.
Yeah, the
That's
Michael
me on
Jordan
the show.
trivia response. That's tough. I'm gonna ask you a question at some point in this episode that's like incredibly obscure knowledge, and I'm just gonna like if you don't get it, I'm just casual.
Yep.
Who was the Lions like? I saw this thing that was like, who's the last quarterback the Lions um drafted in like that wasn't it was some ridiculous like sixth round picks for X team like an X year or something, and they pulled the name out of their hat. And I was like, my, how, I don't know. Some people just have knowledge. I like
I
Jake Ludock was his name. And I was like, I remember him now, but I had
feel like I've
so
never heard that
chosen
name
to
in my
forget this
whole
person.
life.
Yeah, exactly. Like seriously, just the knowledge people hold is absurd. But here's two players that had a higher profile getting traded. Take us through these two Niners swaps here.
Yeah, so the 49ers receiver room, we've already talked about many times how decimated it is. They ended up trading a sixth round pick to the Chiefs for Sky Moore, who hasn't really panned out over there, and a 2027 seventh round pick. And then they also traded a sixth round pick in 2026 to the Commanders for running back Brian Robinson Jr., which was shocking to me when I saw that. So adding some more offensive depth and talent at both the receiver and running back position because they have both been banged up, as Jared mentioned earlier. And pretty low cost. I mean, Sky Moore hasn't really played a lot, and which is weird for the Chiefs because I feel like they just throw anybody out there, just running around catching the ball from Patrick Mahomes. And he was relatively high draft pick, right? Like a second or third
Second
rounder, I
rounder,
think.
yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, sixth rounder's good value if they can turn him around. Great. Or if he's just a body to kind of fill in while the rest of their guys come back, that makes sense. And then Brian Robinson, I think sixth rounder for him is great value to me. He's still pretty early on in his career. This would only be his fourth year, maybe. He's probably like 26, 27, if I had to guess.
Yeah, I,
Um,
I can check that.
Yeah, and I thought he's been pretty good for the Commanders ever since coming back from being shot. Maybe the 49ers just like people that have been shot on their team. That's the theme here.
I wasn't going to say
Um,
it, but I was thinking that. Yeah, he's 26, drafted in 2022, third round player. So
yeah, and he's been good for them. And they just have like super old Austin Eckler and like Chris Gonzalez now is like their running back room. So a strange trade from the Commanders, but good for the 49ers.
I was listening to the Athletic Football Show, and they do a segment about they do like they interview basically beat reporters for those teams that are like in the athletics network, so they'll sit down with
Mm.
them. And if I recall correctly, I think there is an undrafted rookie that they really like. um and so it's possible that they just really like him, costs
I
less
like him
money,
so
right?
much that they just got rid of their starting running back. That's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'm sure there's more to be read on this story. I just looked up Commanders, and I'm seeing falling out. I don't know. I assume that, if it's a player
More
who you
will come to
expect
light.
potentially. I mean, if it's a third running back on your team and you can get a sixth round pick, which is not terrible compensation, maybe that's the thinking there. But interesting move, and it could be a big year for Robinson. Talk about fantasy sleepers. He might be someone I try to tuck into the back of my bench and see if he can pop off.
You don't think Christian McCaffrey is going to stay healthy all season?
Well, I got a what's the term? The handcuff. I got a handcuff
Mm,
CMC with
hmm
Brian Robinson.
I was listening
Uh,
to a podcast and they were talking about how drafting other backup running backs that aren't the people on your team is better. And I was like, I just want my own guys. I don't know. That's just me.
yeah, yeah. No, I mean, I think I draft kind of partly on feel. Like, do I like the vibe of this player as my primary determinant? So,
Well, I just meant
um,
like if I'm getting a backup running back, I want the backup for my player, not somebody else's player.
right,
But
right.
they were saying having somebody else's backup is better. And I was like, okay.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, if you draft the top running back from what you presume will be a top offense, I'd rather have the backup running back from that top offense that I've already invested in, and not like, oh, I wonder if the Jaguars' second running back will get red zone touches or whatever.
Tanks Bigby sure will. Don't you worry.
That is true. Um, Named for it, no doubt. Uh, let's hit these last little bits. One of these things I just these are sort of our other little tidbits here. All quarterback news. One thing I forgot to write down. Matthew Stafford did return to practice this week for the Rams. Um, does
His
it mean
back
he's gonna?
work.
Yeah, his back is back. That's what
Mm.
we're getting out of the Rams Rams
Hmm.
camp. But I think some overall questions still about the degree to which he is back. Right. Um, that type of injury is not something you recover from easily. And so I still
It's
feel
also
good.
not linear typically.
Yeah. Yeah, he could.
It'll just flare at random points.
Which I mean, like, are we looking at a week 5 matchup where suddenly back soreness keeps him out, right? Still
And
feeling
Jimmy
okay.
Garoppolo shows up to save the
Jimmy
day.
Garoppolo, baby. Yeah, love me some Garoppolo. It's a good name to say. Um, yeah, I'm happy that I picked the Texans to win week 1 just based on the fact that it's taken so long for him to return.
Hmm.
Um, and then you've been on this beat all podcast. So what's the thrilling conclusion to the Battle of
Oh,
War in Indianapolis?
the Indianapolis battle's not going my way. I was trying to really be the Anthony Richardson truther and believer, yet Daniel Jones has been named the starter, which to me, being cut from the Giants after being like their practice squad safety, that whole ordeal, to have won the starting job for the Colts probably means that Anthony Richardson was really bad or like some sort of personality issue or something that they're having to deal with over there. 'Cause I don't think it's like Daniel Jones, this is our guy. Yeah, I think it's just like Anthony Richardson, what are you doing? It is more of what it feels like to me. I think this probably helps them, though. I do think Daniel Jones is obviously more experienced quarterback and has played a lot of NFL football. So, in terms of starting the season out kind of on the right track, there's probably a better chance to do that with Daniel Jones than Anthony Richardson. But Anthony Richardson just being a first round talent you drafted like 3 years ago and already kind of seeming like I don't know if it's over, but seeming like he's not working out is unfortunate for the Colts.
I remember thinking that maybe the Lions should draft Anthony Richardson at the top of that draft and consider him as the future of the position. And Jared Goff, I'm very sorry, I was wrong. Um, yeah, that's been just a tough beat for Richardson, and I wonder if another team will try to scoop him up. But I would at some point love to have a longer conversation about the impact of a first round quarterback bust because I think it is a very uniquely um, damaging thing for a team in a way that other
It
first
also
round picks
feels
aren't
way too frequent. Like, why does it happen all the time?
so often. Well, I part of what I was thinking about is if you draft a first round defensive lineman who is like the 90th best defensive lineman in the league, or even worse than that. I mean, you could say the 120th best defensive lineman in the league. That player can still rotate in. That player can come in on certain packages. You know, they can shift outside. They can maybe move to linebacker if they're an edge. Like they have places to go where they still have value. But if you're a quarterback and you don't pan out, well, there's only one of them who's on the field at a time, right? So there's not
Hmm.
even like an okay outcome. You are either it or you are out, I feel like. But
I know the
um,
college game is very different from NFL. It just feels like scouting, because it usually ends up being a league-wide thing. Like it's not like one team thought Anthony Richardson was going to be a first-round QB talent. It was like a consensus thing amongst all of the experts and media outlets and teams and just whoever he ended up with. And other quarterbacks have fallen in the same range. It's like, how does everybody think this guy's going to be good and he's not good? Is it a situation thing? What exactly causes that bust, so to speak?
yeah, yeah, I think it's because yeah, no one at the time was saying, oh, he was taken too high, but I'm pretty sure that was at the same draft where Malik Willis was thought to be a potential first round guy, and then he goes in the third round. Like,
Hmm.
there's just it's an odd world. The draft machine is
Never
interesting.
forget the Josh Rosen draft pick. That's one that always comes to mind for me.
It's just like a bad, and then they take Kyler Murray literally the next year. Yeah, that one was crazy. Um, oh gosh, draft is interesting. But so are our conference team record predictions, and I will transition
What
us there
about Joe
after
Flacco?
I proudly declare that Joe Flacco has won the Browns starting quarterback job. Folks, we can tune back in. I know the thought
Surprising
of
no
Kenny
one.
Pickett unwatchable, but now that it's Joe Flacco, turn your TVs to Cleveland television because
Elite QB, don't you forget it.
um is that are you referencing I think there's a video of Donald Trump saying that. Is that what you're referencing?
I'm not referencing that, but it was like a meme where it was like, is Joe
Oh,
Flacco
that's
elite?
yeah. I think the video was like someone asked Trump if he thought Joe Flacco was elite. And this was shown to me, I think, by one of my students, and I'll let you assume which one.
Yeah,
But
yeah, yeah.
um, I'll show you that after because I think that was pretty funny. But anyway, yes, Joe Flacco, elite quarterback, starting for them, clearly trying to put a team together that could do something. I would hope they would move to Dylan Gabriel, who got a preseason start. Hooray, Dylan Gabriel fan club. Or
Shadur's injured, kind of.
um, I heard he will play in their preseason game this weekend, so healthy enough to see the field potentially. But um, yeah, this doesn't really help the future of the Browns, but it's important to them, so go off, I
Yeah.
guess.
All right.
Let's do it.
I don't have a wheel ready at all. I didn't even think about this. So let me do that real quick.
I can get my four-sided D&D die or something like that.
What is the wheel that I usually use for this? It's not the one I use for the fantasy draft. It's a different wheel for some reason. Okay, I got it. I'm ready.
Okay.
North, south, east, west, spin. Turn the volume off. I do not want to hear that thing spin. Okay. Oh, it's close between the east and the south. It's the NFC South. Okay, let's start with the absolute worst one. Perfect.
I think you should start us off because I was doing so much yapping with that news stuff. I want to hear yours as I learn in real time how I ranked this division out.
All right. Yeah, what did we do last time? We went from 4-1, like we did the whole
We
division
went four
basically.
to one. Yep.
Yeah.
And we picked a
Okay.
game that we thought was interesting if you still want to do
Yes,
that.
I do remember that. Yeah, so let's go through the NFC South, our record predictions. I have in the four spot the New Orleans Saints. Whoa, what a crazy thought that the New Orleans Saints could be the worst team in this division. Not only in division, I have them as the worst team in the NFL at 1 in 16.
Whoa, whoa,
I
whoa.
am quite low on the New Orleans Saints and Tyler Shuck and Spencer Rattler and whatever is happening on that roster. It's just not good stuff. Um, who is their win against? Probably, I don't know. They play the in the first 6 weeks of the season, they played the Cardinals, the Giants, and the Patriots all at home. So they'll probably win one of those games. I don't know. Or maybe I had them going 1-1 with the Panthers. Maybe that was it. But those are basically all the easy games in their schedule. Every other game is against like a real competent football team. And I just have no faith in the Saints. I just think they're going to be so bad. That's the Saints. Next, I had the Panthers at 2 and 15.
Oh
So
no.
I was
Oh no.
I was very low on both of these teams apparently. These are the two lowest records that I have in its entirety, really. And the Panthers, I believe in Bryce Young. I think he's going to have a bounce back year, but we talked about their defense a lot and it's already looking worse, and I just don't know how they're going to stop anybody. Will I see a Bryce Young, Teteroa McMillan pairing for him? That would be nice. Hopefully we can see something like that. Aside from that, there's like nothing going on for that team. It's like, yay, they have Chuba Hubbard and he was awesome last year. Woo! Like that's our offense, I guess. Who would I say is an interesting game? Let's see. How about at the Jaguars week one? That'll be awful to watch, I'm sure. That'll
Trevor Lawrence,
be
Michael
a lot of
Penix.
fun. Maybe a sneaky win in Dallas week six. They host the Dallas
Ooh.
Cowboys. I could
Ooh.
see the Panthers coming out on top in that game because the Cowboys are a disaster of a franchise, and we'll get to them later. Falcons, 9-8. I have not winning the division, but 9-8 is a fine record. I like what they're doing with most of their pieces. I'm not sure if I believe in the Michael Penix Jr. experience, but he was okay last year. We'll see. Atlanta playing Washington week four. That seems like a fun game because that's a really good team. And then they go to bye week five really early on. So that'll be kind of an interesting to see where their team is at. early on in the season. Really, Carolina's the only early opponent they have that is like a bad team because they play the Bucks, the Vikings, Carolina, and then Washington. So we'll see how much of an adjustment they need to make after that. And then lastly, I have the Buccaneers winning the division at 10-7. So nothing crazy. I feel like this is kind of where they have been in recent years. And I feel like this is where they will continue to be. Honestly, I like this team more than this record suggests. They just kind of have the most brutal schedule of the four teams in this division, I think. They play the Eagles, Seahawks, Niners, Lions in a 4-week span. That's pretty tough. And then later on in the season, they have to play away at Buffalo. It's like, oh my God, that's a tough game. But I'll pick for their interesting game. Let's go hosting the Jets in week 3. I'm interested to
Ooh,
see how the Jets look by that point. So, if the
the Todd
Bucks,
Bowles Bowl.
the Todd Bowles Bowl, after visiting Atlanta and Houston, this will be their first home game. And I'm kind of curious how both of these teams look early on in the season. That's my NFC South.
Um, I think that your NFC South is pretty conforming with my NFC South. It makes a lot of sense. You may have taken your records to greater extremes than mine. That's the only thing. I
Uh,
somehow ended up with Carolina actually as my lowest team, um,
Interesting.
which I don't really know how I did that. Well, I know how I did that, and it's I was hit on the head with a coconut in the middle of this, but um, I think Carolina has a schedule that is generous enough that if this team plays to its best, could we see this team challenging Atlanta to be the second best team in the NFC South? I think so. This team gets to play Jacksonville. I mean, playing the Falcons twice isn't the hardest thing. Playing the Saints twice isn't the hardest thing. They get the Dolphins, albeit earlier in the year. They get the Jets. And tough kind of ended their schedule, but I had their 4 wins coming against. I have them stealing one from the Bucks, which is dubious. Taking one from the Jets, and then getting a win against the Falcons and the Cardinals. I think week 3 Falcons Panthers matters. If this team wants to be someone, a team we can get excited about, I think you need to prove that you are at the level of a team like the Falcons, which, yes, has some pieces, maybe a little more established veteran talent, but with a quarterback that's relatively new to it, if Bryce Young outduels Michael Penix Jr., even if they lose the game, that's a good indicator of where his development's at. So looking at that game, just 1 win higher at 5-12. I do have New Orleans, of course, the Tyler Shuck, Spencer Rattler, and is it Trevor
Jake
Simeon?
Hayner.
Jake Hayner. Sorry, I same
Come on, I got
frivolently.
Saints QB knowledge ready to go for some reason.
I was trying to remember that article I read or that I saw that was like the hot shot, Tyler Shuck, and I was like, who's the other? Who are the other two? I was like the whatever. Anyway,
The
yeah,
new
I don't.
starter, 25-year-old Tyler Shuck.
Yeah, um, the opponent's saying, "Oh shucks." No, I am very pessimistic on the Saints season, except for the fact that their schedule is so soft. Here are some of the teams I have beating them: Arizona, the Giants, the Patriots, the Bears. I have the Jets beating them and the Titans beating them. And those are all teams, maybe with the exception of like the Bears, and I guess my vision for the New England Patriots are a little out of that range, but those all feel like beatable teams if you're the good kind of bad, right? If you're getting good coaching from Kellen Moore and decent quarterback play from Spencer Rattler or Tyler Shuck or Jake Hayner, but I just don't see that for this team. I do have them stealing both games from the Falcons divisionally, and that might be where my extra couple wins is coming from. I could see them splitting with the Falcons just because there's a blood rivalry there, but winning both of those feels a little improbable. So I'll say week 12 hosting the Falcons 425 on Sunday. This is right after their bye, gives them a chance potentially to maybe establish or maintain some momentum after some relatively soft opponents ish. in the first half of the year, although when you're New Orleans, most teams look like better teams on the schedule.
Hmm.
Atlanta, I have 7-10. Maybe I'd have them at 8-9 if I had them splitting with the Saints. I don't really believe a ton in this team. You're assuming Michael Penix will be great from jump. You'll assume the defense has a ton of disruption all of a sudden. You're just counting on a lot to go right for a team that has unestablished QB talent, and I am inherently skeptical of such.
Maybe this
If I
is the
have to,
Kyle Pitts year.
this is when Pitts pops off. Hey, Pitts can play quarterback, maybe. Um, I do have them beating the Vikings in week 2. I'm sure I had a reason. Um, that's in Minnesota. I maybe the Vikings. Oh, you know what? It's the JJ McCarthy. I think JJ will be young. I think Raheem Morris, being kind of a veteran defensive guy, can take advantage of JJ. But
Hmm.
overall, I mean, if you can clean up on the Saints and can clean up on the Panthers, that's 4 wins right away. And then you can maybe pick up some of those wins against teams like the Cardinals, Jets, Colts, Dolphins, Patriots. There's a path for this
For
team.
sure.
So I'll look at the matchup. Give me week 10 Falcons Colts. They're going to Indianapolis. If you lose that game, I don't think I would take this team super seriously at that point in the year. I have them winning 4 in a row from week 8 to week 11. And if you drop 2 of those games, I don't think you're a contender. I loved Tampa. Sorry, if you had
Hmm.
any thoughts on the Falcons before we move on, but
I was just gonna say, yeah, I don't think they're a contender regardless, but
yeah,
yeah.
oh yeah, I mean I'm pretty pessimistic on them in general. I loved the Buccaneers, and I was scared I was going to open this and see 15-2. I was shocked to see I had this team at 10-7. Here's some of the opponents I have them beating. That list you had of Eagles at Bucks. Oh, technical issues, technical issues.
Dead air, dead air. Oh no. Oh, what are we gonna do? His document is
Can you hear me? Can you hear
crashing
me? Can you hear me?
out. Yeah, yeah, I can hear you fine. Can you
Okay,
hear
I can hear
me?
you. Sorry, my
Your
headphones
headphones
have
died.
passed on.
Ah, I see.
Yes.
Headphone
So
was
you're coming at
shared.
me raw from the computer audio here. This is an ear reveal on the pod. I've got 2 of them as expected. Back into the flow of things though. I was loving stupid. I was loving the Bucks content, man. I was loving that the Eagles Bucks. I thought the Bucks would take that game. Bucks Seahawks, thought the Bucks would take that game. Niners Bucks, I thought the Bucks would take that game. If you're winning those 3, I feel like that sets you up to be
And you still have
um,
them 10-7? That's crazy.
still have them 10-7. I think it's partly testament to the schedule. The teams I have them losing to are Houston, Detroit, which is my game to watch because I will be watching it live. I have
Hmm.
them losing to New England, which maybe I would give that one back. Losing to Buffalo at Buffalo, losing to the
Yeah,
Rams in Los Angeles.
yeah,
And then I have them splitting with Carolina and Atlanta. So maybe in this vision of the team, if I'm more generous in the divisional matchups, they're 12-5, right? And
sure.
that's probably closer to where I would have them if I was starting with the record and not with the schedule in front of me. But I think divisional matchups are challenging. I think they can always go both ways. If Carolina's beating the Buccaneers in either of their games, it's a great sign for Carolina from a team building standpoint. But yeah, I'm watching Bucks at Lions. I think it's going to be a great game. My
You
dad and I
will
were
be
talking about, do we
watching.
want to go to that? Do we want to go to Bears Lions earlier in the season? And I just after the playoff divisional matchup with the Bucks was so close, and then they beat us last year, one of our 2 regular season losses. I feel like these teams play really good games together. It's Monday Night Football. I have them losing in part because that's what I want to see, and also because they're going to be coming off of, again, host the Jets, host the Eagles, go to Seattle, host the Niners, and then you have to go to Detroit on Monday Night Football. I just think it's a really tough slate. But I believe in this team, and if you said the Bucks made it to the NFC Championship game, I could see that being possible for this team. I don't know if I see them as a Super Bowl team, but I could see them getting all the way to the last step of the dance there.
Yeah. Yeah, I also like them. Interestingly enough, we both had them at 10-7. Don't know how that happened.
Yeah, I don't know. I was really worried it was going to be more than that, but I think it's the curse of the NFC South that you have to win with one more win or two more wins than
Right.
500. So we'll
Let's talk about now the NFC West.
woo.
Give me
Uh,
some teams. I'm excited about this one.
well, I have to actually see which is my fourth team. That's way too
Oh,
many
it
wins for a team
shouldn't
that
be
I
that
felt like I
hard.
was picking as the lowest every time. Who even is? Oh, okay, that's fair for this team. Gonna go to Seattle. Well, no, nothing crazy there. And
Should
then did
be
I bury this
Arizona,
team
I
because I
would
loathe
imagine.
them? Wow. Okay, I this is where all the wins are coming from, and I'm worried for Dallas because all these teams are doing pretty well for themselves, which means someone in another division had to be the heel, and I do think it might have been Dallas. Uh,
Yeah.
I'll start with my number four, the Arizona Cardinals. I have them 7-10,
All
and
right.
that's surprisingly high. I was worried they were going to have two wins. I think this is a team that I think right now, as far as identity goes, is really anonymous. They have the potential to be a strong defensive team under Jonathan Gannon, former DC of the Eagles when they won the Super Bowl, right? So there's potential there. And Kyler Murray is a good quarterback. I think Kyler Murray is a quarterback that the Cardinals should not build their future around personally. I don't think Kyler's shown enough to be a true franchise player. I think 15 teams in the league would, I think the Colts or the Saints would give a arm and a leg to get Kyler Murray, right? So maybe he
Hmm.
is that guy. Just haven't seen him do it in the playoffs yet. And when you get to this point in your career and you haven't done it, I get skeptical. That said, when you're playing the NFC South and you've got the Saints and the Panthers on your schedule, when you've got the Titans and the Colts on your schedule, when you are playing the Jaguars, there's just wins to be found here. That said, I don't think they're going to deliver in the games that truly matter. I'm going to look at, let's take week 10 going to Seattle. If I recall correctly, the Cardinals were on a tear last year, had their bye, then fell off. If you beat a division rival in their home turf in that second game coming off the bye, that might show you're here to stay for the home stretch and give you some momentum heading into a backstretch that has the Rams, the Buccaneers, the Bengals. Just tough matchups all around, but a little pessimistic on the Cardinals overall. 7-10 is higher than my feeling on them is.
Hmm.
Just above them, Seattle at 8-9. Partly because this is just a hard division, and partly because they've got some challenging opponents. Now, I think they can split with the Rams, and I think they're going to feast on lesser squads. I just think they have too much defensive talent. Um, Games against the Falcons, Colts, Panthers near the second half of the season, game against the Titans, right? These all feel winnable to me. And so I think they're going to have a lot of momentum. That said, 8-9 is probably not going to cut it in the NFC, depending on where the NFC North lands, which that's a pretty strong division. But I just think that they've got a lot of difficult matchups. They got to play Minneapolis. They've got to play Washington and Houston. I think a lot of teams looking at the schedules in the NFC here, Houston's a team I have beating a lot of NFC teams. So I kind of think they might be the deciding factor for a lot of these NFC playoff positions. Are the Houston Texans who we think they could be, which is pretty good, or are they who we worry they might be, which is the best of a very bad bunch? Um,
Hmm.
Remains to be seen. I have them dropping. I actually only have them winning two games before their week 8 bye, those being the games against the Jaguars and the Saints. They can beat a team like the Steelers in week 2. I think that would be a nice quality win. They're going to Pittsburgh, so tough to do that on the road. But if the offensive line holds up against the likes of TJ Watt and Cam Hayward, that's a good sign that they might have the support around Darnold to make a splash in the NFC West. Number 2 and number 1 are tied.
Mm.
I have the Niners and the Rams going 12-5, and I will start with the Niners. It's a pretty generous outlook for the Niners, but it's a pretty generous schedule for the Niners as well. And I think having really manageable opponents is just going to allow this team to do a lot of damage. I'm not worried about them playing the Saints, the Jaguars. I'm not really worried about them playing the Giants. I'm not worried about them playing the Browns or the Colts or the Titans, right? So if this team is confidently better than the Seahawks and the Cardinals and goes 3-1 in those games, and then handles the 5 or 6 relatively underwhelming teams on their schedule, that's basically 500. And then if you can pull games away from teams like Atlanta, um, in somewhere in that tier, I think that that's going to be really strong for them with an overall record, and could propel them to the top of a division that is generally a little rockier and doesn't usually see a schedule this straightforward and this comfortable. So I think their first true test is week 5. That's 49ers at Rams. Cardinals and Seahawks are good. I think the Rams are very good. If you can take a game from the Rams in week 5 on their home turf in Los Angeles, that's going to set them up for a great season. Speaking of the Rams, I had this team going 12-5, despite the fact that we are as yet unsure of Matthew Stafford's situation. If Matthew Stafford is out for even 5 games for this team, I don't know if they make the playoffs. And it's because even if Garoppolo is solid, depending on the games that Stafford misses, could be insurmountable, right? I've already talked about week 1 Texans at Rams. I would really want to see Stafford get in a lot of healthy practice for that game. I'm worried about if Stafford is still banged up heading into Rams at Eagles, a game they have them winning right now. They have to go to Baltimore in week 6. That's just a difficult matchup. They have a lot of the same soft schedule benefits that the rest of the division is seeing by playing the NFC South. And it looks like getting a few more tolerable AFC South opponents as well. So I think it's quite possible, even if Stafford's injured, that they stay in that wild card consideration. Just depends on how much time he misses. And for that reason, I think their most important game of the season is either week 1 or week 3. If Stafford comes back in week 1 and he looks bad, I'm scared. If week 3 comes around and he doesn't have the strength to go toe to toe with the Eagles, I'm scared. Which is a shame, because I think with the young talent and the core around this team, they are a team I could see potentially fighting their way to the big dance. They would have to get through the Lions, of course, but anything's possible. So that is my take on the NFC West. Thank you for obliging that. I would love to hear where you have these teams coming down.
Oh yeah, this is a fun one. I
Uh-oh.
am gonna like this a lot. Let's just say for really all of the NFC West, most of the schedules are pretty easy. They play some bad teams, which means I had a lot of wins in this division.
Oh
Starting
boy.
off with the Cardinals, who had less wins than you, actually, 5 and 12.
Wow.
So I'm also relatively pessimistic on the Cardinals. I do think Kyler Murray is underrated, overhated. I feel like there's a lot of like Kyler Murray hate in the NFL sphere, which is weird to me. I think he's a fine quarterback. Um, is he an all-star? All-star is like an NBA term, but is he like a superstar quarterback, like a top guy? No, but I think he's obviously serviceable. Like you mentioned, there are plenty of teams that would love to have Kyler Murray compared to their current QB situation. I think Marvin Harrison Jr. will have growth in year 2.
Mhm.
Hopefully, him and Kyler can have more chemistry, more connection. Trey McBride obviously was awesome last year. I think that will continue to be the case. James Conner, healthy last year, played like 16 games, which is unlike James Conner. But they do still have Trey Benson behind him as well, um, who they drafted in the second round last year. So if James Conner goes down, they do have a guy they like. Hoping the defense gets better, but I'm not super confident in the defense overall. I haven't been for a lot of years because they don't stop people typically. Maybe this year will be the change for that. Looking at their schedule, though, it does start off pretty soft at Saints, home against Carolina, so they got 2 pretty easy games right off the bat. You mentioned they play some AFC South teams, Tennessee, Indianapolis, Jacksonville. Those are all like fairly winnable games, and those might be the 5 games I had them win. Because aside from that, they play relatively steeper competition, other NFC West opponents who I think are better, and then the likes of teams like Houston and the Bengals, and even like the Packers and Cowboys, I would say, are probably better teams than the Cardinals. So Um, Overall, it's not great for them, importance wise and game wise. Let's look at, I mean, week four hosting the Seahawks after the two easy games to start the season. If they start off 2-0, road against the Saints, home against the Panthers, I imagine they'll get whacked by the 49ers week three on the road. So how do they bounce back week four at home against the Seahawks team? I think is kind of an important part of their schedule because then they have two easy games again right after that. So um, they could look a lot stronger than we're predicting early on in the season before their schedule really kicks in.
I think it's a great take. I think Marvin Harrison Jr. might be the biggest X factor player I can think of on any team in this division besides maybe Stafford in terms of
Yeah.
like how good could this team be. So that's a good point.
Next, this may surprise you. I have the Rams. Um,
Wow. Okay.
yeah. At 11-6, which means there are some
Okay.
high wins in this division, like I mentioned. So, yeah, I don't think the Rams are necessarily bad. I am definitely worried that, this was made before we know this Stafford news right now. So, hopefully he is coming back and healthy as well. Their schedule kicks off hosting the Texans, like you mentioned. And then a road against the Tennessee team that's pretty lackluster. Week three against the Eagles will be huge. I'll pick their game, though. I think week five against the Niners, hosting the 49ers, could be a pretty important game. You mentioned Stafford's health early on. I think by this point, he should obviously be playing. And that will be kind of an important divisional game. Rams 49ers have kind of had this back and forth for several years now. And then if they can manage to win that game, they'll be going with some momentum against Baltimore on the road, which would obviously be another huge game. So I think the Rams' offensive talent, when Stafford's under center, he's not a guy that people are going to look at as like MVP caliber. He's just a very good game manager, and he can definitely do that with the offensive weapons he has with Devontae Adams, Puka Nacua, Kyron Williams. That'll be fun. I think their defense is finally kind of kicking into gear. There was a couple of years there where they were just super, super young, and now they have kind of developed and are looking pretty good.
Yeah. I think that there's a lot of reasons for optimism, some reasons for doubt, and the record you gave them is perfectly reasonable, which makes me wonder where we're going with the Seahawks and Niners.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So the Seahawks, I had four games above you, 12-5,
Wow.
is where plopped the Seahawks. And it's not really because I love the Seahawks. I just kept going through their schedule and I was like, oh my God, this is so easy. Um, we talked about this in the AFC episode. I'm pretty down on the Steelers, so I had them winning that game. And then they got Saints, Cardinals. That's a pretty easy 3-week stretch. They end up eventually playing Jacksonville, Tennessee, Atlanta, Indianapolis, Carolina. Like they just have a lot of cakewalk games, so it seems on their schedule. And then I think I had them splitting with both the Rams and the 49ers.
Mm.
Um, so that's how they kind of walked their way into 12 wins. For me, I will choose. How about week nine after their bye on the road in Washington, who I think
Mm.
is also a formidable opponent, and we'll talk about that division in a second. I feel like at this point in the season, with where both of these teams could be record-wise, this could be like a pretty big game because Seattle's schedule starts off pretty easy, and Washington's schedule, which we'll talk about, I think also starts off relatively easy. So I think this will be a big game for both of these teams.
Yeah, I think that's definitely could be two teams vying for seeding in the NFC, depending on who ends up taking their division, kind of in that wild card. So, um, yeah, I think that'll be a great matchup to follow.
And then lastly, I have the 49ers at 13-4, winning the division.
Okay.
So
Okay.
one more game than you. Not a crazy 15-2 or something like that.
Yeah, who would say
We
something like that? Ugh.
we already talked about their injuries though this episode that they are facing. So this take is already kind of not looking that great. But again, just another super easy schedule. We already mentioned both AFC South and NFC South teams that all these guys are playing, and just I think these teams are basically better than all of those teams. And then they have like a couple tough opponents sprinkled out here and there. But I don't think 13-4 is crazy. I don't even think that this team is like that good. Like I
Mhm.
feel like Buccaneers 49ers is not that far off, yet I have one team winning three more games, but that's just the nature of the beast with the scheduling and such. So, important game I will pick for them. Let's take, this could be fun because I have the record so close. Week 18 when they host the Seahawks. I
Mm,
wonder where the NFC seeding lies and the NFC West seedings lie, and if that will be a game that either team needs to play their starters and such when teams usually rest based on how kind of the playoff picture is looking.
I mean, based on those records, that would decide the division, right?
Yeah, for sure.
So that's pretty exciting. That would be a great matchup, and it'd be cool for the future of the NFC West if the Seahawks get good again, because there was that window where really three of those four teams were elite, and that was a really cool period. So,
For the
um,
Seahawks, I definitely should have chose week 13 when they host the Vikings. The Sam Darnold Bowl, of course.
oh, yeah, that's going to be interesting. I do you feel like Darnold's an upgrade over Gino?
No, I don't think so.
No, yeah, I
No.
kind of don't either. But the schedule is so soft for them,
Yeah.
seemingly. So,
A lot of wins in this division just because they played a lot of not good teams. So
all
that's the
right,
NFC West for you.
that's we're not too far apart, and I think how we evaluated those teams. I think you were just more generous with the wins, but all about the same shape. Um,
Next, we'll talk about the North, the best division in football.
woo.
We the North, as the Toronto Raptors say. So I'm interested to give my takes and then see what you got because I feel like my takes on this division are kind of weird. Um, we'll see. Coming in at fourth, I got the Vikings.
Okay.
7-10 is where I ended up with the Minnesota Vikings after they were like what 13-3 or something last season in the Sam Darnold Vikings era that was one season long. But with JJ McCarthy coming off that injury and a lot of kind of question marks in terms of that offense and how it's going to operate, a little bit on the defensive side of the ball too. I just don't know how this team is going to look with him. I know Justin Jefferson, I think we didn't mention this. I think he's already had like a minor training camp injury. Jordan Addison suspended for the first three games of the season. So it's going to be a rocky start, I think, for the Vikings, especially um, because their schedule and a lot of the team schedules in this division are much tougher than the NFC West that we just talked about. So I think I had them probably splitting with Chicago and maybe even Green Bay. Definitely losing both in the Lions. Sorry, can't help you there. Um, but they also played like the Eagles and the Bengals. I think I'm higher on than you. The Ravens, obviously a very good team. The Commanders. I mean, they have a lot of tough opponents on their schedule this year. It doesn't start off nicely enough for JJ McCarthy. I think a lot of their easier matchups are earlier in the season. Um, Falcons and Cleveland are two examples before week 6 when they have their bye. So after that, how do they look week 7 against the Eagles coming off their bye after what is a relatively easy schedule and their first, obviously, like gigantic opponent? How does JJ McCarthy look? That should be interesting. So that's the Vikings. Then I have the Bears at 8-9. So not a crazy good record. Chicago is an interesting team. I think they'll be a lot better than last year in terms of how they look. I believe in Caleb Williams. I think they have done a pretty good job of surrounding him with the things that he will need in terms of offensive weapons and hopefully more of an offensive line this year than he had last year. I think they have a little bit more favorable schedule than Minnesota. They kind of sneak in Las Vegas, the Saints, the Giants. Like they got some quote unquote easy wins in there. Um, but aside from that, they do play a lot of the stouter teams that I had mentioned previously. I think an interesting battle. I'll say week 1 against the Vikings should be fun. Hosting at Soldier Field, JJ McCarthy's first game. How do the Bears look season 2? Where do you want to look in this division? I feel like you have to kind of start off with a statement, um, especially because the Vikings were like really good last year. So if you can start off kind of beating them in week 1, that could look interesting. Up next, I got the Packers second in the division at 10-7 is where they ended up for me. Jordan Love, better quarterback than I wish he was. Um, maybe sitting on the bench for 3 years is the move that all teams should be doing.
Hmm.
But what a nightmare they start out with against Detroit and Washington. They do host both games, but those are two very good teams and not exactly a way to ease into your season. They do get the Browns after that. That's nice. And they get the Cowboys, who we'll get to the Cowboys when I talk about the Cowboys. It's not looking great for Dallas, though. Other than that, though, I think the Packers, I hope their offense gels. We talked about their questions for every team. I mentioned Matthew Golden. Will he become the number one receiver really quickly? Interested to see that. I think their defense has pieces that are good. Will they have kind of a cohesive unit? I'm not sure. This just feels like one of those teams that always kind of finds their way into this kind of record range, regardless of how good or bad I think the talent on their roster is. And I feel like this will be another one of those years. Lastly, I got the Lions, 13-4 is where I put the Detroit football team. Um, I know I had the 49ers at 13-4. I definitely think the Lions are better, but the Lions have some stiffer competition. We have to go on the road against the Ravens, the Chiefs, Bengals, the Eagles. Like we have a really hard teams that we have to play all on the road, which is kind of interesting. But aside from that, I think pretty much all the home games that the Lions have are kind of a walk in the park. So I'm looking forward to that. And then a couple of road games will be easy, but a lot of them will be difficult. For a game I think will be interesting, how about week 6 against the Chiefs? Because playing in Arrowhead is always kind of an experience. I know you and I, we watched week 1 against the Chiefs, whether it's last year or a couple of years ago, and
Hmm.
that was really fun. And that was kind of the the start. I think it was 2 years ago, and it was like the start of, oh, here's like the really good Lions team.
I actually
Because
don't
they
think we watched that game together, but
lies, slander. Anyways, go ahead.
we watched Lions Rams together at the Haymaker, I think.
I could have swore we watched the first game of the season, but
That was Lions Rams the season after the playoffs. Because I was at Addie's apartment watching Lions Chiefs, and then I called my dad right after and was like, ah. Um,
well, I'm a liar. Um, but yeah, I'm excited for that game again this year. And that's my NFC North take.
yeah, sorry to cut off your Lions take there. I just vividly remember because the Rams game went to overtime, and we were there with like our work cohort. That was a good one.
Yeah, but
Um,
did we not see a like I know we saw that, but didn't we also just me and you go to Haymaker and watch a game?
that oh we did. That was Lions. Was it the Vikings? Maybe I
I don't know
I
why I
know
thought it
it
was
wasn't
Lions
week one. It might have
Chiefs.
been like week 4 or 5. Anyway, um, I'll go through my text. We'll figure it out. I um I had a different appraisal of this division, perhaps.
Okay.
What do you think my lowest record in this division is?
Um, maybe you put like the Bears at like 5-12 or something.
I put the Bears at 4-13.
Okay.
I and I don't know why. I think I was as I was going through the schedule, I wasn't looking at individual team records, but a sense of some teams that I had really put in the tank. And the Bears might have been my like forgiveness win for a lot of them, right? My like regress to
hmm
the mean. They just sort of sponged up. Hey, this team should probably not win only 2 games this year, so beat the Bears. I I don't really have a great explanation as to why I have them beating the Niners in San Francisco and then losing to the Giants at home. So I
Interesting.
I think what this comes down to is a few things. I think one, I think there's a bit of sadness that like I now have to listen to the Ben Johnson is a genius narrative about another team in my division, right? Like the Ben Johnson worship um train is leaving the station, and I I think Ben Johnson, from what I've seen, has approached Caleb Williams with a lot of aptitude. And maybe if I was making this today and not 2 weeks ago, I would think differently. But Yes, they bolstered the offensive line. They have good wide receivers. They've added some defensive talent. However, a first year coach with a second year quarterback who still has a lot to prove against a number of teams that are either just more talented or have veteran coaching, right? Few examples of
Hmm.
this. The Steelers going to the Bears, right? Steelers have a pretty strong veteran defense. If that offensive line doesn't hold up, that's a trouble spot. I still think Green Bay is a wholesale better team than Chicago. I think that the game I actually feel the most confident as like a surprising pick is I think the Raiders will beat them when they host the Bears in week 4 because Pete Carroll is just a savvy veteran coach who's been doing this for decades, and Ben is new to the first time chair. If Caleb Williams is great from jump, and if Ben Johnson is great from jump, this is a 9-win team, right? And I look like a fool, but I just don't have faith in the Bears product fundamentally. Maybe it's the general manager record of the team in recent years just hasn't inspired faith. That said, I'm going to look at I think the two games I care most about are week 3 and week 4. They have an early bye in week 5. If you are the Bears and you're playing your best, I have them beating the Vikings in week 1 with JJ being so new. You could
Yeah.
easily leave the first 4 weeks with 3 wins if you're firing on all cylinders early, right? And Bears Lions is scary because when an old coach goes and plays their old team, right, they know so much about that old team. So if that game was in Chicago, I probably would have given it to the Bears. Uh, so they could leave with 3 wins out of the first 4 weeks, and that would give them some breathing room against teams like
And then they would
Philadelphia,
lose
Cincinnati.
every game for the rest of the season except for one.
Pretty much. I mean, I had them losing to Dallas and Vegas in my prediction actually, and
Yeah.
then so um maybe they wouldn't go 4-13 if that happened. But I mean, they have to play Washington, Baltimore, Cincinnati. They play Philadelphia. They play the Lions twice, Packers twice. There's a lot of losses to be had. But if this team is truly improved, that won't afflict them. Minnesota, I had 6-11, so right around I think where you had them. JJ's so new, and resting can be helpful, but he had to rest without that practice, right? Getting that redshirt season without throwing the ball, without playing against the scout team defense. I just don't think it's very helpful for you. Now, I have them beating the Commanders somehow. I don't know what the thinking was there. I guess I think they've got a really savvy defense against an offense that doesn't have a ton of weapons, and that might be what gives them the edge there. I have them beating the Bengals when they host the Bengals in week 3. I granted I don't have a ton of faith in the Bengals, but I think this team could absolutely get into the playoff if JJ McCarthy is hot early. But me for me, the big question is what's your quarterback look like? And I feel better about the Bengals quarterback, the Chargers quarterback. I feel about the same about the Bears quarterback, but even like old Aaron Rodgers, established guy, and I think he's going to be on a revenge tour against the Vikings. That's my sleeper pick. So I
Mm.
have them 6-11. I don't think this is a bad season for Minnesota. If JJ McCarthy is better by the end of the season than he is at the start, I have him winning in week 13 through 15 and then losing out to New York Giants and then Detroit and Green Bay. If you win that game against the Giants, I'll make that my highlight. Why not? If you win week 16 against the Giants and you've also won 2 of your games against the Seahawks, Commanders, and Cowboys, I think that's a great outcome for Minnesota, regardless of how the season's gone, because it shows JJ McCarthy is settled in and is talented. Um, for the Packers, I have them 14-3, and I thought that was a division winning number. I saw it 2 weeks ago when I accidentally clicked over to them, and I was like, no, the Lions must be losing the division. I guess not. They are both tied at 14-3.
14 and
I
3. Wow.
14-3. It's high. It's high. It's honestly higher than I thought the Lions would end up. I do have the Lions sweeping the Packers. I think the Lions have just done really well against the Packers and view them as a true rival, and I think that'll get people motivated. Only other loss I have for the Packers is hosting the Eagles. That means they give the Ravens their one loss in my predictions. It means they go to Denver and beat Denver. And I think this just comes down to the fact that the Packers are proven, consistent winners. I was hearing someone talk about how the Packers under LaFleur were like 13-4 the first 2 or 3 years, and then dipped to like 8-9, and then 9-8 or whatever. I just or at 11 wins maybe last year. I just feel like they're too well coached. They've got too much depth in terms of young guys who could pop off. That against most teams, I just have more faith in what they are. And at the end of the day, I think that puts them at second place in the division. Could I see a world where the Packers win the division? Yeah, I just don't want to live in that world.
No.
I think it. Oh, I got to pick a game. I think week one matters. I think, man, if you want to show up, beat the Lions on your home turf. That game matters. Commanders are a tough out. Ravens are a tough out. I have them winning those games right now. That doesn't mean that will happen, right? The Bengals aren't free either. There are a number of teams that could easily push the Packers toward that 10-win number if they aren't careful. So if you can get that win against the Lions, at least split that series with them potentially in the division, that's going to be huge for potentially winning the division. At the very least, it's going to set you up well in the NFC, regardless of what shakes out. The Lions schedule is brutal. Lions schedule is one of the hardest schedules I think I've ever seen, to be quite honest, just in terms of like it's the anti-Chiefs in that they are hosting they are traveling to every hard team.
Right.
That said, they were undefeated on the road last year. They lost all of their games at home. And I think this team is play with an edge, chip on its shoulder. And so I think that gives them a fighting chance. That said, I have them losing 3 away games in Baltimore, in Kansas City, and in Philadelphia. Yeah. And that means they beat the Commanders in Washington. That means they beat the Bengals in Cincinnati. Means they beat the Packers in Green Bay, right? They beat the Rams in LA. I mean, as I'm listing all of these games, each of these games individually would probably be the hardest game for a team, in their season, and the second game wouldn't be close. We're playing all of those teams on the road. Ridiculous. Who do we host? The Giants, the Cowboys, the Steelers, the Browns, the Buccaneers. I mean, relatively safe teams. This is an impossibly difficult schedule. And I think it's a great schedule to set the Lions up if they make it to the postseason, playing well, knock on wood, healthy, right? I think it's the kind of setup where if you come out of that winning the division, or you come out of that maybe as the number 5 seed behind Green Bay, but you've won a lot of these games, gone 12-5. It's kind of battle tested that I feel like might be able to put you on a trajectory towards the big game, just because, man, it is so difficult that winners win in that situation. So if we're winning, we're winners.
So
sorry, I got heated. I got impassioned.
Got Lions to a little bit there.
Sorry, I love my Lions. I'm live from Ford Field. My allegiance is known. So
as you always are, every week you travel out there for the show. We really appreciate you for that.
Yeah. I should have charged my headphones. I forgot the charger in the travel bag. Kind of a mistake, but
fair.
Does that leave us the NFC East?
That sure does leave us the NFC East.
What did I have to say about this? It's good. I love to see it. I hate that team so much. I'm not biased, but I hate that team so much. I hate this team too. Good. Yeah, let them suffer. Good. I think that if you had to pick a division that's like, on average, which teams do I hate the most, and it's not my division, it might be the NFC East. I think I now hate Washington.
I really only Dallas. Hate the Cowboys. Yeah.
Cowboys. I just hate the Cowboys.
It's really just the Cowboys. I'm fine with the other teams. I feel like in my lifetime it would have been the AFC division, East.
I guess there's worse division. I don't know. I am bitter with the Commanders, even though I reserve the right to like Jaden Daniels, and the Cowboys are gross, which is why they're at the bottom of my rankings. Am I going first this time?
Yeah, they're at the bottom.
They're at the bottom. They're comfortably at the bottom. They're tucked in. They've got the pacifier. They've got the blanket. But they aren't sleeping soundly with a 4-13 record. And gosh darn it, I have very few regrets. I think this team just doesn't have the juice, doesn't have the sauce. And maybe that's because, there was less Dak last year, so I'm forgetting about all the talent on this team. But I just feel like other teams have gotten better and the Cowboys have stayed the same. Their big move, re-signing Osa Odigizua this offseason. Okay. They replaced Brandon Cooks with George Pickens. Okay. Do I sit here and look at this team and go, yeah, but the Cowboys are the Cowboys, and under Mike McCarthy, they were so good. And so, last year was an anomaly. Man, I don't care. I just have so many reasons to be excited about other teams. I have very few reasons to be excited about Dallas. And I
Hmm.
get that I have a resentment against Dallas, but if Dallas was good, I would give credit to the Cowboys where it's due.
For
I
sure.
I look at this schedule and the wins I would give them back that you could say, okay, that's kind of homerism or anti-homerism. Okay, I have them
Hmm.
beating the Giants and I have the Giants and Jets beating them. Okay, maybe you give those two back. They're 6-11. Okay, I'll give you the Chargers. They're 7-11. I don't feel bad about having them lose to Washington twice and Denver. I don't have them bad. I don't feel bad about them losing to Philadelphia twice. I think they're playing a lot of really good teams. They play Detroit in Detroit. They play Green Bay. They play Denver. Good teams. I don't think they're better than good teams are because I think they're bad. Maybe you give them Minnesota, right? Maybe they're 8-9 again. But I'm really pessimistic. I think other teams just keep improving, keep innovating on their process, and Dallas sits in park. So, boo.
Will Micah Parsons be on the team? I don't
I
know.
mean, we haven't even signed our star, right? We haven't even signed the guy that makes our defense go. What are we doing? Yeah, who knows? Maybe I'll eat my words, but even if they're better than I think, I don't see a world where they're comfortably 12-5 and coasting to the number 5 seed in the NFC or something like that. They're
Sure.
in a really good division, to be fair, right? Um, so yeah,
You got
I
up
guess
next.
week that matters. I'll say week 4, hosting Green Bay. If you win that game, you matter. New York Giants. I know I'm yapping. I'm just a big old yapper. Just so much to say about teams. I
It's
feel
what a
so little.
podcast is.
I suppose so. It's the medium, right? It's not a silent medium. I will put the Giants here. I've got them at 6-11. That would
Okay.
be pretty solid year for the Giants. That says that one of Russell Wilson, Jackson Dart, and James Winston is doing good work. And to be fair, Russell Wilson is probably a better quarterback than at least 7 QBs in the league. The Saints would probably prefer it. The Colts would prefer it, right? He's something. He's stable. And Dart has apparently looked good in the preseason. Giants have a bit of a challenging schedule, but they also have some winnable games here. I already said I have them beating the Cowboys. I have this team beating the Chargers as well. I have them beating the Saints. I have them beating the Bears. But I also have them losing to a couple winnable teams like Las Vegas. And so yeah, I think they are better than they seem. I think they could be on the way up. You got into my head on their defensive line, which I think can be a difference maker against teams with bad O lines, and they play some of those, right? The Chargers have that injury to Rashawn Slater. Now um you have to put in your third tackle against Kayvon Thibodeau and Abdul Carter and Dexter Lawrence. Like that, it's a mismatch. Um,
Hmm.
and I think if you beat um I'll say Chargers Giants week 4. You beat the Chargers, I think you are in a good space. Am I going to be tuning into that game with eagerness? Maybe not. Not the most watchable game, but if you are able to beat the Chargers in a bit of a slugfest, you've arrived. Uh,
Hmm.
Washington, I have going 10-7. They're second in the division. I believe Washington will be very good under Jaden Daniels. I believe Washington has added a ton of veterans. They are so old. And for the fact that they are very old, they're trying to, like, Debo Samuel feels like a gamble to me. Laramie
Hmm.
Tunsil, maybe not a gamble, but not ideal, right? They're plugging holes with guys who are maybes to me. And I just don't love that method of roster building. And they're playing good teams this year as well. I think all of their losses, except maybe this Chargers loss, you would give back, or maybe Minnesota, right? But like you got to play Philly, you got to play Denver, Detroit, Kansas City. You're playing Green Bay. The whole NFC North. I don't think is necessarily pushovers, even though I don't have the Bears doing very well. Your division's hard. 10-7, still a good season for Washington in a competitive season, but they haven't made those surefire moves to get blue chip guys that makes me weep with joy. Um, and yeah, you bet I'll be watching Week 10 Lions at Commanders. If they beat us again, this team's real. And if we put the punish on them for what they did to us last season, I'll be weeping tears with joy. Tears of joy, excuse me. Finally, Philly, bit of regression for Philly. I have them going 12-5, which includes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 straight wins, not counting the bye in week 9. I think Tampa has their number and they play a lot of really good teams. It feels like a tough year to be a number one record in your division. Just like really good division winners that we feel good about overall. Um,
Mhm.
from last year. I mean, again, Kansas City, Detroit, you're playing Buffalo, right? Like just really strong, solid teams. So I think 12-5 is perfectly fine. I think 12-5 is still on track to compete. And I think in theory, you could get this up to 13, 14 wins if you handle the Rams or you handle maybe like Washington. I have them beating the Lions already. So 12-5, big game to watch for them. I'm going to say Eagles Chiefs week 2. I think the Chiefs are going to be playing with a vengeance, but talent can overtake emotional factors. And if they are as good as they were last year, they'll beat the Chiefs. End of yap. Cessation of rant. Take us through your NFC East.
Yeah, it looks just a tad different, but let's bounce through it. Much lower on my bottom team. The Giants, 2-15 is what I had the Giants at,
Woof.
which is rough. A rough season for the Giants. They just have a hard schedule. They play a lot of actual football teams. If I had to guess, it's been 2 weeks now. I would say I gave their wins against the on the road the Saints in week 5, and then on the road Raiders in like week 17. And then aside from that, it's like gauntlet. I may have actually had them lose one of those games and go 1-1 with Dallas. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, I mean, Washington twice, Philly twice, Chiefs, Broncos, um, Niners, Packers, Detroit. They just have a lot of tough games on their schedule. And I think the inconsistency in the QB room is going to bother the team
Mm.
with Russell Wilson likely starting the season off, and then eventually maybe Jackson Dart takes over. James Winston may exist sometime in there, and I feel like that kind of lack of continuity will cause their season to kind of sputter as time goes on. But then you end up with another high draft pick and rebuild. That's fine. That's not the end of the world. So that's what I predict for the Giants. A game for me to watch for them. How about the Battle of the News in Week 13, New England versus New York? Two
Oh.
young quarterbacks at this point. I think Jackson Dart will probably have taken over. Where will they look at that point in the season? I'm not sure, but it'll be interesting to see those two teams. And that's going into their very late Week 14 bye, so we shall see. I have the Cowboys up next, 6-11. I'm pretty low on the Cowboys too. Not as low as you, but still low, I think. 6-11. That just feels low for a Cowboys team. Again, like you said, like I just said about the Giants, tough division. Um, tough schedule. They, I think, have a little bit of an easier schedule than the Giants. They have the Panthers are thrown on there, the Cardinals are thrown on there, in addition to some of those other teams I had already mentioned. Um, I just don't believe in this team, period. The end. That's the end of my statement. Dak is fine. He typically gets injured some amount, which is unfortunate, but I think he's a fine quarterback. CeeDee Lamb is awesome. I'm not sure what the George Pickens experience in Dallas will look like. I hope it goes well for him. We'll see. And then Jake Ferguson's also fine too. Their running back room leaves a lot to be desired. Their defense I don't think is looking too hot right now, especially with the Micah Parsons thing. And it's a tough division, like we mentioned, with the other teams in it. So I have Dallas finishing pretty low. For their schedule, I will say, uh, I had a game in mind, and now I'm looking at their schedule and I can't find it. Going on the road, Chicago week 3, I think they're going to lose. And I think they're going to start off 1-2 because they'll probably beat
Wow.
the Giants. So,
Yeah.
um, that seems like an important kind of pivot point in the season because after that they host the Packers, which I think are fine. The Jets, I think, are fine. They play like a lot of teams that I think I ended up giving the win to the other team that they're probably on par with. Um, but they're the Cowboys, and I don't like them, so alas.
Yeah. Bias is welcome in ethical ball. Is that what
Yeah.
we're saying?
As long as you admit to it, right? It's like you don't want to hide from it. Like you have to be like, yeah, it's there.
Transparency, that's ethical
Right.
ball.
Exactly. Next I have the Commanders. 12-5. I had the
Woo!
Washington
Wow.
Commanders. I believe in this team. They must be really good if they beat the Lions in the playoffs. But no, I believe in Jane Daniels for sure. I believe in what he can do and what kind of the whole team can do. I think they're on a good trajectory. They start off the season pretty favorable, which for me, in terms of record predicting, always helps because if you can start off with a lot of momentum, then hopefully the rest of your season goes well. But
Mhm.
I mean, starting off Giants at Packers, which could be a tough game, hosting the Raiders, and then Falcons, Chargers, Bears, Cowboys. It's like, oh man, this is like a really easy start to the
Yeah.
the season for them. And then some of their tougher games come later on the road to the Chiefs, hosting Denver, hosting Philadelphia. And I don't like they do the Philadelphia things in week 16 and 18, which
Mhm.
is weird. And maybe those games are really important for the overall division record and conference, seeding and all that. We'll see. Um, for my important game for them, though, I will pick. I'll pick Week 13 against the Broncos after their bye, hosting the Broncos, who I think are another good team I had at 12-5 as well. So these are two good teams later on in the season, kind of vying for playoff spots. Two second-year quarterbacks as well that both had very good rookie years. So we'll see how they look at that point in the season. Then, lastly, with my number one record in the NFC, I had the Eagles at
Wow.
14-3.
Wow.
Just narrowly edging out some of the 13-4 teams that I mentioned. I do think the Eagles aren't as good of a team as last year, but they also won the Super Bowl last year. So they were a really good team. So some amount of regression doesn't suddenly mean they're a bad team. Their schedule is interesting. I think they kind of benefited where some of the other NFC East opponents maybe got some of the easier teams from other divisions. I feel like they got or some of the harder teams from other divisions, they got some of the easier teams. I think I do pick them losing against Buffalo week 17. That'll be the game that I point out. That seems like a really strong point to kind of encapsulate their season. I mean, honestly, Washington, Buffalo, Washington is kind of a gauntlet to end the season on. So we'll see how they look when they get there. You already mentioned the week 2 game against the Chiefs. That's like the only game that I really care about early on, aside from the Denver matchup in week 5. Other than that, it's like a lot of teams that are like kind of whatever. And the Rams too in week 3, I should say. I can't denounce the Rams that much. But yeah, I think they're gonna come in obviously with a lot to prove, coming in as the winners. I feel like in the NFL, it's not like teams don't typically just like walk in like, okay, I'm gonna go back to the Super Bowl, which I know has happened with the Chiefs in recent years and the Patriots before that. Um, but it doesn't happen for every team. So I feel like they're gonna come in kind of ready to go, and we'll see how they look.
Yeah, I feel like in the AFC, that's typically where the dynasty has been, for the
Hmm.
most part, where you get those repeat teams, and then the NFC is rotated in our lifetime anyway. Like the Patriots, right? The Chiefs. You had a couple years like the Broncos were really good, um, and then the NFC besides the Seahawks, it kind of is a bit of a rotating door. But yeah, it would be. This is a great schedule to make Eagles Commanders the most intense division battle,
Hmm.
period, I think. Um, and yeah, I think your vision of the NFC East makes sense. I might have been too mean to Dallas and too kind to the Giants, but overall, what's your top seven? Who's making the playoffs from these here squads?
Yeah. I was looking at this as we were going through this. So at 7, I would have the Rams at 11-6. 6, I would have the Seahawks at 12-5.
Wow.
5, I'd have the Commanders at 12-5. And then 4 would be the Buccaneers 10-7. 3 would be the 49ers 13-4. 2 would be the Lions 13-4. And 1 would be the Eagles 14-3.
Okay. Yeah, I mean,
So that means Packers miss. Um, and that's really the only team I think that is kind of narrowly on the edge there.
so wait, who is your seventh seed in that case?
The Rams.
Oh, so you had Rams and Seahawks.
Yeah. Rams, Seahawks, Commanders were the not division winners.
Wow. Okay. I mean, that would be three. That'd be cool. That'd be an interesting matchup. Good for the Seahawks. Would that put so that would be Washington at Tampa would
Tampa.
be that'd
Yeah.
be a good game. Um, Seahawks would go to the
Seahawks would
third
go to
seed.
the Niners.
Oh, divisional
And
matchup in
the
the
Rams would go to the Lions. So
and that game would get a lot of pop as well. A playoff rematch for this team.
I didn't
Um,
plan that out, but that sounds fun.
that does sound pretty that sounds watchable for sure.
What
And the
about you?
Rams are
What
a
do you
very good
got?
team. If Stafford's in a good spot, you never know. My four, five, six, seven. It's going to take me a second to figure out 6 and 7. I can tell you that number one's the Lions,
Hmm.
and call it homerism, but they have the same record as the Packers, so could have gone either way. Number two, I have to remember who I had winning the NFC West. That was the Rams. Um, oh, I had like four teams go 12-5. Whoops. I think I have the Eagles and San Francisco and the Rams all going 12-5. Perfect. Um, we'll say the Eagles are going to be my second seed there. I'll say the Rams. I like the Rams vibe better for my third seed. That puts Tampa at 4. Washington was 10-7. Green Bay, so it would be Green Bay as the 5, and then it would be the
49ers.
other Niners, and then it would be Washington.
Mm.
Unless I'm missing anything, and I think that I generally feel pretty okay about those teams being the
Yeah.
17. I'd maybe shuffle the order, but um, I I would say maybe my super sleeper would be if the Giants have a prolific defensive year, maybe they could break the picture. But feel pretty good about
The
those
2 and
squads.
15 Giants.
2-15 Giants,
That
or
would
the
be
Seahawks
wild.
are another good pick for that too. Oh, that's the NFC. How do you feel? Was it did your final image of the NFC come out how you expected?
Um, that's a good question. I feel like I didn't go in with like a ton of expectations. The NFC South ended up being terrible, which I did expect. So,
Yeah.
that was accurate. I definitely did not expect multiple 11 plus win teams in the NFC West. Three
Mhm.
teams with 11 plus wins over there.
Right.
Their schedule just really easy, I suppose. And then I had the Bears or I had the Vikings 7-10, which feels kind of low. I think you had it even lower. Um, but they just have a really tougher schedule. So yeah, overall I'm happy with it though. I think, if 6 of these 7 teams that I have make it, I wouldn't be terribly surprised. If the Packers make it over the Seahawks, like in your bracket, I would not be surprised. Um, I would say out of all of these teams that didn't make it, the ones I'd give like the highest shot to, even though I have the Bears above the Vikings, I could see the Vikings having a better season and making
Oh,
it,
that's a good
but
point. Yeah.
who knows?
Um, yeah, I think it's a fun year for the NFC because it could go a ton of ways, and it really does hinge on it feels like a few key players, right? Like Caleb Williams, JJ McCarthy, Jackson Dart could be like three guys who change the season
It
entirely
hinges
just based on their
on the
play. So,
Houston Texans
um,
playing the
okay.
NFC West.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. The Houston Texans will decide the fate of the NFC. I forgot I said that. Okay. Is it time for me to take the shot?
Yeah, we should do that. We should travel back from Ford Field. We should go to insert address here and take the field goal.
Yeah, thanks for not giving that away. And I'm moving next week, and you're helping whether you like it or not. So
I forgot about that. I really hate that.
yeah,
Sad.
I'm excited for you to participate in this move. I think we'll have a good time.
I'm sure
Um,
you are.
Yeah, I mean, you're strong, and I'm not. So,
Thank you, thank you. Oh yeah, look at that. Wow,
I mean,
that
I could
feels.
lift. I just can't lift alone for most things. Where's all my strength? It's in my legs. Because I'm a kicker, baby.
Oh, oh,
Oh,
that was
oh.
good. That was good. I
All
played
right.
offensive line in middle school, and then I was a tight end, and they were like, "Man, we should have had you be a tight end for the whole season." And I was like, "Yeah," and then I never played football again. So
Um, we went from tight end to letting loose. All right. I'm lined up. Like, subscribe, comment, call Dom casual if it means engagement. Um, lined up for the kick. 56 yards. What's up?
56 yards. I didn't even see it on the screen, so it's absolutely no good.